revolting. Oh, yes, you all look revolting today. No,
English village in the year 1381. This is a generation since the common flea snapped its hind legs and made half the population of Europe disappear. Since then, a great many things have changed. The people who survived took new advantage of opportunities, more of them learned how to read and write, and more of them became wealthier. There was more jobs to be had, more opportunities to be found, and change was in the air. Radical new ideas of religion and society began to percolate through England. And this change made certain people very nervous, as we shall see. If we were to listen in on what was happening in the village, we'd hear that the English language itself was changing from the Germanic tongue of the Anglo-Saxons into something we recognize today. And we might hear them giving a farming tune from that period.
Sommar is kommen in, lude sin kuku, rauet med, and blauet zed, and springs the wood anew, sing cuckoo, always let it after long after kaluku. Oh, look at the foot, what the bore sing cuckoo, well the sing cuckoo, this would the hour do. And clouds fell, and clouds met, and springs the wood anew. Sing cuckoo, how it blessed after long, love after Calicoo. Ulrich said it buke where tis mood, sing cuckoo, well sing cuckoo, this wick the hour new. Sing cuckoo, new, sing cuckoo. Sing cuckoo, sing cuckoo.
But all is not pleasantries and pastoral scenes in the southern English market town of Trotton. The changes have alarmed certain people, and terrible things are afoot. Our good King Edward III has died, and his heir, Richard II, is a young man, a teenager in fact. Real power rests among three men. One of them, leader John of Gaunt, Simon Sudbury, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the man who expelled me from the clergy for nothing more than growing a beard and marrying a wife. And Robert Hales, the treasurer. But what's this? Someone is taking poor Mary Patricia.
Oh my gosh!
She's done nothing wrong. Let's see what's going on here.
No!
They say she hasn't paid her taxes.
you must pay.
No,
She makes no money.
already
What taxes
paid for
does she
me!
owe?
I am a servant! I don't... Oh, no!
Yes, you must go
Oh,
in.
no!
We all must pay the price. We all must.
Cousin! Cousin!
Go ahead and
Help!
mistress.
Help me,
Come help your
cousin!
What is afoot here?
See? Why did you take my servant?
She's
She
been
has
a
not
servant.
paid her poll tax.
What poll tax? Well, she's my servant. The inn pays
Everyone
the
must
taxes.
pay the poll tax.
The inn pays the taxes and all
And
of it,
who
sir.
is the
I'm
keeper
sure
of the
my
inn?
husband
Who
pays
owns the inn?
taxes.
Who is your husband?
My husband's the sheriff.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
So
I'm sure I paid my taxes.
cousin,
Release her! Release her!
If you
on,
swear
cousin.
to pay her tax,
told you. I'm sure he paid.
I'm sure I did. Pretty sure at least.
You know,
pretty sure.
oldest one on the village.
We must
and
all do our
I don't even
parts.
have. I don't have.
Brave shame this was. Let us head over here and we'll try to explain to you modern
What are
people
they
what has
doing over here?
befallen Mary Patricia and so many others like her. What is a poll tax? You may be asking yourself, what is a poll tax? A poll tax, my modern friends, is nothing more than a tax for being alive, a tax for having a head between your shoulders. Everybody who had a head in 1381 over a certain age was expected to pay a tax regardless of their circumstances. If a tax wasn't paid on their behalf as a servant, they could still be punished. Horrible things were done by the agents of the three men, the evil men who really rule England. Horrible things were done to women in particular to try to force the villagers to pay taxes. Now keep in mind, as we'll find out later, there was tax after tax after tax thrown upon the poor people of England. This was not an accident. This was not an accident. This was a part of a concerted effort to keep the commoners in their place. You moderners have a minimum wage, as I understand it, by law. We have a maximum wage. We are forbidden from earning more than our fathers or grandfathers did. Try to imagine that. And as I pointed out earlier, after the Black Death, there were new opportunities for us, new opportunities to move and make ourselves better, to learn how to read and write and improve our situation. But that would come to naught with all of these laws on us. It's not just taxes either. There were trade restrictions issued daily by the whim of the court, issued in Norman French, which none of us could read. And the women over here who do amazing work in the garment district, they make finery of unbelievable quality. But if they were to wear their own wares, they would be fined for their finery because of sumptuary laws designed specifically to keep us commoners from looking too good. Ooh, indeed. Terrible injustices are being done in the name of our king, and the whole of southern England is now aflame with revolution in 1381. Thousands of peasants across the realm are uniting and marching. And I here am trying to get Troughton to join us. Yeah! Let me help you understand what it is to be a commoner. Now, if I could get everybody to either put their hands on their hips or over their head. So whoever put their hands on over their head, you're out. So whoever's left, do the same thing. Hands on the hips or on the head. Okay, whoever put it on their hips is gone. So does that leave anybody? Anybody left? We have a handful. That is a rough approximation of the percentage of nobility and clergy to commoners. You talk about your 1%. Well, we had a less than 1% ruling over us. In fact, a tiny handful of people owned the property. Not only that, but they set the laws for the rest of us. So even free men who were not bound to the land as servants had incredible difficulty in buying, selling, trading, making their way, and making any kind of profit. And I understand you modern folks, you love to do the numbers, as they say. So we have here our local bookbinder to break it down for you in terms you can understand and see just how impossible it was. In fact, it's so depressing, it's turning me back over to the barrel. I've moved on from the bottle.
I'll tell you about my cousin's life because she has it so difficult. She lives in the country. When her husband's father died, her husband was able to inherit the right to use the land. As a serf, he could not inherit ownership of the land. He and his mother had to pay a death tax for the death of the father. That was either the best animal he had or its cash value. A cow was worth 113 pence. My cousin and her husband were able to get married as a result of him being able to inherit use of the land. They held 20 acres from the Lord. For those 20 acres, they paid 13 pence per acre in rent every year. That's 260 pence for the year. They also owe 1 day of labor to the Lord. In addition to that, they must use his mill to grind their grain. They must use his oven to bake their bread. And they pay fees for that, and they pay dozens other fees as well. With 20 acres, they plant 2/3 of their land at a time. That would be 13 acres every year, and in a good year, they will get 10 bushels of wheat per acre. Let me show you how this works for them. Right off the top, at harvest, the church will stand there in their fields and take 1/10 of everything that they harvest. So that's 1 bushel of grain. In addition, the church will take 1/10 of everything that they grow, all the wood that they gather, and anything that they make.
Too much.
Too much. In addition, as smart people, they save corn to grow their crops the next year. That's 1.5 bushels per acre. To pay their rent, they need to sell at 6.5 pence per bushel. They need to sell 3 bushels per acre farmed.
Outrageous.
So far, over half of the wheat that they have grown is not available for their use. So their household includes the 2 of them, their 3 children, his mother, his younger brother, who as a younger son could not inherit anything, and then they've also taken in a small orphaned relative of theirs. That's 8 people in their household of different ages. Now, for the poll tax of $13.78, it was 4 pence for each person aged 14 and over. 7 of their household that year were taxable. At 28 pence, that was 1/3 of a bushel of wheat per acre farm. In 1380, it was a sliding scale, meant to be on income, but truly it was on social status, which does not mean they paid a fair share. It was slightly better for them that year at 26 pence, or about 1/4 of a bushel. But it came right after the previous poll tax. But in 1381, the poll tax was proposed for the low age of 15 and over. And it was 12 pence for each person. That becomes the cash value of an entire bushel of wheat per acre that they farm. This leaves them 3.5 bushels per acre farmed for them to live on, to sell for cash, to eat.
Outrageous.
And
Down
this,
with the Royals.
even with a garden and their pigs and their chickens, this is not enough. And that's in a year of a good harvest. What happens if the crops fail? If only half their grain grows? My poor cousin and her husband and all her family would starve.
Down with Gaunt.
Why are these people doing as much or more to support the failing wars with France and the excesses of all the rich people? They are paying more than the wealthy. Is this right?
No!
Is this fair? No! No wonder there is a revolution.
Will any join us? Who will join the Commons?
I will join you.
Can we have a free man, a man at arms, to come join our revolution?
The good lady is right. We are being sorely taken advantage of by the landowners. In England, if you do not own land, then you are a tenant, either a free man, like me, or a serf. And serfs, as you might have heard, have few rights. They cannot leave their land. They cannot trade, or barter or sell. They cannot even get married without permission from their owner. Yes, serfs are basically slaves in England. As a free man, I can do those things. But the landowners, the nobility, and the clergy are passing laws that hurt me so that I cannot. They are using the courts and legal system to strip away our natural rights and reduce us to serfs on their land.
Down with them.
Down with them.
Down with them!
And why do they do this? Money. A landowner may charge his serfs whatever he wishes for tax.
They want to steal.
They do!
Exactly.
In one case, the serfs of a village offered to pay 40 shillings. That is 90 days of their wages, just to have their rates for the rest of the year fixed and certain.
Outrageous.
Outrageous! We are educated now. Many of us have been taught by the clergy, especially radicals who believe that
good
everyone
clergy.
should know how to read and write. We understand these laws. We see how these laws are being used to oppress us. We've tried to fight them in court and it has failed.
Lawyers.
It is hard to fight a military campaign against the nobility, however. It would be fruitless. Except we are not poor, scared peasants.
Let's rise up.
Every single free man in England is required to bear arms and armor and serve if called on. And every man and many women from the age of 16 and onward must train with the bow and arrow several hours every week. We are not poor, scared commoners. We are an army ready to rise up in revolt!
Good citizens of Trotton, do not listen to this heretic. He's been defrocked. You know what happened to Look at that unkept beard. Look at him. He is no longer a man of God. Do not fall for his lies.
But he's no royal.
Did not God create the earth?
Yeah!
Did God not create man?
Yes!
Did God not create the king as our anointed king?
Yes!
Did God not create the nobles to serve that king?
Yes!
Did God not create the clergy to serve God?
Yes!
Did God not create the peasants to serve the nobles?
Yes!
Is this not God's way? Who questions God's plan but a heretic?
Not at all.
I speak the truth. You do not speak the truth.
Dad,
Look
what's the
around the village, Trotton. Look at the marketplace cross. I know you guys were nothing but a village with no income till that cross went up when the king granted you license to have this market. And have you prospered? Yes. Farmer John, I see you in the crowd. We served as young men together in France, and I know you brought a purse back full of fat French silver.
That was a good year.
Yes, and I know the spice merchant has a mighty fine hood and wears mighty fine clothes. This town has prospered under the king and his required taxes.
That's right.
When Adam dwelled in Eve's span, who then was a gentleman? What a lot of nonsense. These people can't even beat France in a war. Who loses a war to France?
An assault on the king representative is the same as an assault on the king himself. The sentence is death.
Dare touch me. For those of you who don't realize it, George R.R. Martin got his ideas from English history. There aren't many happy endings. In 1381, 60,000 peasants from around England rose up simultaneously and marched on London. They killed some nobles on the way. They burned a few castles. They sacked a few churches. They did not have airplanes to deal with. They did not have airplanes to deal with. However, what happened was they met with the king, with their leader, and their leader was
Wat Tyler.
Wat Tyler led this revolt, and when he was meeting with the king, he made the same fatal mistake as our defrocked priest. He spit in the king's presence and was struck down. Our young king, thus only about 14 years of age, rose out and turned the crowd to his favor and got the peasants to go home, where he had his men track down all of the leaders and hang approximately 9,000 of them.
Is that right?
It was not a happy ending. And that brings us to the end of the peasant revolt. Welcome back to 1388, where we're going to do something amusing for your entertainment in the fight square next. Not knightly combat like we first planned, because our knights have all injured each other with the pole axe. We've broken these men, but we've got one fit man left, and we're going to put him against this behemoth for your amusement. And with that, this ends the formal portion of the show, and we're going to go over to the fight ring for a slightly different show that we're making up right now for your amusement. Thank you!